there does come a point when you can still get quantity and quality. So I reckon if you're picking inside, say, the top 120, the more picks you can have in that 120, the better. So, you take somebody like the Patriots, who are right at the back of the first. If they're happy to let someone jump in from the top of the second, then jump out the first, pick up a third at the beginning of the third or fourth. You're still inside the top 100 to 105 places, and you're still getting absolute quality for extra picks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, it just means you don't want to drop too low, because then you do sort of dilute the quality. But ultimately, in that top 100, 120, the more picks you can get, the better, because they're your starters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair. Having said that, I think it's about time we get started recording a podcast, gentlemen. That's what we are here to do. Although we're on topic today, last week we were only just chatting about random sports, but we are on topic of football and the draft going into the episode, which I'm very, very happy with. Welcome back to the College Football UK podcast, brought to you by the AEW Network. I am your host, Fletch, and as always, I am joined by my co-hosts on screen. I've got Nick, I've got Sam, I've got Gary, and hold on there, don't think I'm ignoring you there, Adam. Hold on one second. How are you three gentlemen?
Good.
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. Happy to be here. Sorry I missed last week. Good to see that big man is putting in the effort from across the pond.
He is, as always is the case. All reliable, Nick.
Harsh with the
Bless
old
the old.
reliable. Yeah, it's a
Bless
bit
the
harsh.
old, thank you.
I didn't say that. I mean, that was a bit
Emphasis
harsh.
on the old and emphasis on the reliable, are we?
Wow.
Emphasis on one of those words, and reliable is a word. It is. You want that to be the word, then that can be the word. There is a reel that's just been posted this week from last week's episode that would actually have you in that category where you were complaining to Sam about his age at the 1996
Yes, I saw that.
draft.
Yes. And when Sam said he was 3, and your response was, that was mean. I'm glad I missed that, because, wow, yeah, jeez.
There's more where they came from.
Yeah, I can imagine. At least I'd have been, if I was here last week, I could have sympathised with you there, Nick. I could have given you a bit of backup, but sheesh.
Yeah. But as has always been the case, every time you see him, he's part of the furniture. So, we thought, well, let's not make him part of the furniture. Let's make him official, staple, weekly returning person. Adam of College Football UK View is back, not as a guest this time, as one of the 5. How are you,
One of us. Sorry.
I'm good, thanks, Fletch, and yeah, thanks for inviting me back on and having me to stay. I was becoming like one of them unwanted house guests that sat on your sofa and never left. So nice.
The smell was getting a bit bad, to be honest. So we just had to kind of bite the bullet. The smell was starting to linger.
Yeah, it was getting a bit silly getting introduced as a guest every couple of weeks. So
there was one point I think I did say, like, you gonna stay here and pay rent, or are you gonna leave? And you just went, there you go, where's the rent?
Just freeload.
Let me know what tenancy agreements I need to sign.
It's definitely short term.
Today, as we are part of our series on position groups for the draft, today is offensive lineman. We have a former offensive lineman in the building with us to help us go through this topic. So it should be, this should be the best of the lot. I know Sam, Adam, and Gary, we've all said we're not doing any of the work this week. It's all Nick as the offensive lineman of the group. But that's what it is. Offensive linemen, tackles, guards, centres. We'll try and get through as much as we can to get you set up for which of the big Samoan fellas, Polynesian fellas, will be going on Thursday and Friday in Pittsburgh. Before we get into it, though, obviously do not forget to follow us, the AEW Network, on social media. Join our free-to-join Discord server, and you can find all of the relevant links and information in the description of this episode. If you are on YouTube, they are right below our beautiful faces. And if you are on Spotify or Apple, you will find them in the app that you are listening on. With that all said and done, not only is he in... This is why, by the way, he's reliable. Not only did he fly all the way out to San Francisco last week and still be on the pod the next day, not only is he still on the pod this week despite being in San Francisco, he's gone out of his way to make sure Nick's news stays around. What are the headlines, my friend? What are the headlines this week?
Thanks, Gary. I missed that every week. You don't do it. Retired
Like a
head
hole in the
coach Gus Malzahn and former California head coach Jeff Tedford have sold their souls, traded in their dignity, and will join the highly corrupt CFP selection committee this spring.
That's
So,
how you really feel.
you know, I'm just saying. I can only say it how the news was presented to me, and these two men are joining the selection committee. That's all I've said. So, moving on, because I don't think they don't deserve much. Neff Giva, or Neff Giva, depending on how you want to pronounce it, I don't know. A 20-year-old Irishman of Nigerian descent has committed to South Carolina despite never playing football before. This man is a monster.
Yep.
6'7", nearly 300 pounds, with 37-inch arms. I mean, that's a bear. I mean, that is literally a big bear. He turned down offers from Miami, SMU, Texas, North Carolina, and Tennessee, and he's only ever played rugby. That man is a mountain.
Yep.
So, good luck anyone facing him.
I'm guessing they're going for the. Is it Mai? Was it? Who's the? They're trying to follow the same route that. Who was the rugby player that came out of Australia? Mailata?
Mailata.
Mailata. There you go. Yep.
I saw that on the Pro Football Ireland page the other day. They've been covering him, obviously extensively with him being Irish. Just so really, really, really good news. Love to see people like that.
Yeah, great. Great to see people. You know, usually to get a FBS college take you, that's quite impressive. So,
even more impressive for a bear.
Very true. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether he'll need tranquilizing at the end of every game or what. But yeah. Talking of FBS. Trinidad Chambliss will get to play another year in the FBS.
Yes.
The NCAA had their appeal against the court ruling denied, and so his injunction stands, and he will get to play one more year of college football, which, to be honest, regardless of what you think about taking it to court and what have you, when you look at what he did and what he was suffering from, I think it was probably a little unfair for the NCAA not to give him a redshirt year anyway. So while I don't agree with players going to court to try and get extra years, and you know,
it should never have got that far, really, should it?
Yeah. I mean, like Owen Heineke's, even despite declaring for the draft, he's now trying to backpedal and get back into college. I don't agree with that, but when you've had medical issues that they didn't credit, I think that's a bit unfair. And then my last piece of news is right up Adams Street, seeing as they're not far away. Oregon State, their athletic director, Scott Barnes, is retiring. He will oversee a transition period and will leave his position on the 31st of August. But I guess if he's Oregon State, you don't really care, do you, Adam? It's just that the little boys down the road, isn't it?
Little brother.
Yeah. That's
no,
it. That's it. That's the news.
Oregon State, make the game better when we do play it.
Yeah.
So hopefully you can figure that position out.
So we have not that there is the rule, Adam. You should know this as when you signed the contract and you paid your fee to be on the podcast, which obviously
it's in the post.
Text in the post, yeah.
There is no beaver hate on this podcast. There is no beaver hate in this realm. It can't happen. It's not allowed. I will allow it just this once. I'll let you off with it. First strike, but no beaver hate.
You just allow Ohio State hate and Notre Dame hate. That's all you allow.
Absolutely.
But Notre Dame hates the American army, so
we don't listen, it's not allowed, it's encouraged. There are different things. Those things are absolutely encouraged. Sam's supplement, is there anything in Sam's supplement this week?
Yeah, so I've got the unfortunate news of talking about former Wisconsin tight end Jack Pugh, who stepped away from college football 3 years ago, citing mental health concerns, has unfortunately died. It's not been given the reason for his death as of yet, but the university
It's never a
announced
good
it.
sign, is it? It's never good.
So, yeah, he was 24 when he died. The fact that he's kind of stepped away from mental health reasons, it wouldn't surprise me if it was linked to that. But obviously, we don't want to speculate. So,
No.
yeah, just an awful bit of news. The other bit of news I had was that, if I can get it, Kenny Burns is suing Kent State officials over 2025 firing. So he believes it's under wrongful termination, breach of contract, and defamation, and that it was sort of the last step in the school's conspiracy to save money. So, yeah, another situation where we're going to have probably a court case over money in America and sports or American college football. It's just not a good sight in terms of the amount of court cases and suings and things that we're starting to see within the sport. You know, it's unfortunately that's just what's going to happen now. And then finally, I haven't read too much into this story, so someone might be able to add a bit more onto it. But seeing as we're on, there is encouragement of OSU's of Ohio State. The head coach
No.
has liked.
I don't like
I was
that
waiting
wording.
for him to step
I
in
don't
there.
like that wording.
I was
There is
waiting
not
for that.
encouragement of Ohio State. There is encouragement of the hatred of Ohio State. That's not
Very
big
big
key
difference.
words missed in
Big
that
difference.
sentence.
Big
Either
difference
way,
there.
Day has likened college football to dinosaurs, and that essentially they need to adapt or die. I'm assuming that a lot of this is to do with the fact that I did see something around it being cited that he'd lost more than 30 players in the draft or in the transfer portal in 2025, and I think there's just a bunch of what seems to be a bit of whining more than anything. But
Been a lot of whining going on recently, isn't there? So,
well,
yeah,
from a particular group of head coaches that will not be named on this pod. The term "little bitch" comes to mind.
petty, I believe petty was the term that was bandied around.
Petty was the second term, but
yeah,
I stand by the fact that I still think he's a little bitch.
Gary's Gazette. Anything in Gary's
empty
Gazette?
today.
Empty.
Moving on.
And I don't know if we settled on a name for it. Did we, Adams?
No, we didn't. We
came up with a
time
few awful ones, which we decided we shouldn't do.
What's
Adam's
been
Addendum,
by
wasn't it? Adam's Addendum.
Was it Adam's Addendum? Yeah, Adam's Addendum or
that's
Adam's
still a working-
Alternative News or something.
Yeah, I think the
Certainly-
addendum was the
certainly
most PG one we came out with.
Yeah, certainly better than Adam's Appendix, which it just sounds like he's got appendices. Yeah, Adam's Appendices. Yeah.
Yeah, which doesn't sound particularly good.
It doesn't sound. Sounds like we need to get a medical opinion on that one. Digress. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So I'd say the appendicity as well.
Yep.
We never digress on this pod.
We're always on topic and never off on a tangent.
All of the time. Right. So speaking of being on topic and relevant and all that sort of stuff, Fletch's trivia of the week, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh boy.
Cue the applause, cue the music, cue the crowds just cheering at home. Cue someone sat in the car on the way to work getting ready. Like I'm gonna answer this one correctly this week. You know, everybody waits on bated breath for it. As has been the tradition over the last few weeks with these episodes, I try to make this relevant to the episode. Your Fletcher trivia question of the week is: how many offensive linemen have been taken first overall in the draft, and can you name any of them or as many of them as possible?
First overall.
First overall.
How many? What?
How
Offensive
many
linemen at first?
offensive
linemen.
linemen have been drafted first?
Number
Tackles,
one
guards,
pick.
centers, all together. Offensive linemen first overall.
Can't be that many.
Can't be that many.
Three.
Please.
More than 3.
Wow.
I'll go half a dozen, 6.
Close.
I was
7.
thinking 7. I was
7.
thinking 7.
6, 7.
But 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7.
We've got to get the clip in. We'll stick that one on TikTok
That's
for
the one.
Gary.
That's the one. That's the
That
one.
is the
Drew. That's the
one
one that'll
on
drum up the
TikTok.
engagement. That's it.
Yeah.
Can we name them? Rick,
7
no.
offensive linemen in history have been taken since the first ever draft in 1936. How many of them can you name? I guarantee we won't be able to name a good few of them because, like, you're talking in the 40s and 50s and 60s. Won't necessarily expect you to know them, but there are some more recent ones.
I still go. Recent. When you say recent, Joe Alt went. What did Joe Alt go a couple of years ago?
Joe Alt
Third?
went
Aye.
third.
Third.
He was a
Offensive
very
linemen go
good.
top
He
5.
was a
Trent
very
Williams?
good left tackle at
Trent
college.
Williams?
Trent Williams was not first overall.
What about the guy
I
who's
can't.
just
I can't think of any.
guys? What's the Andrew guy just was Sam just retired from the Rams. Your
Andrew Whitworth.
yeah.
Andrew Whitworth.
Nope.
No.
No,
I wouldn't say he just retired.
this is relevant to me as any other Ram.
I don't know. I'll give in because I haven't got any names off the top of my head, and we've got a big pod, so I don't.
Got a big pod. I don't want to hang around on this one, but yeah, this is a toughie.
Okay.
This is a toughie.
So going from newest to latest to oldest. In 2013, it was Eric Fisher out of Central Michigan taken to the Kansas City Chiefs. In 2008, it was the legend himself, Jake Long, out of the Michigan University to the Miami Dolphins. In 2001, it was Leonard Davis out of Texas to the Arizona Cardinals. Then in 1997, Orlando Pace out of a school that we will not mention to the St. Louis Rams. And you have to go back quite a long time if you want to find the next one. In 1968, where it was Ron Yary out of USC to the Minnesota Vikings. This name you will all know, even if you don't realize you know it in this context. It was Chuck Bednarik. 1949 out of Penn, went to the Philadelphia Eagles, famously known these days for the Chuck Bednarik Award. And in 1939, it was Kai Aldrich out of TCU who went to the Chicago Cardinals.
Wow.
Chuck
There's a throwback.
Chuck Bednarik will always be, because he went in as a center and a linebacker into the draft.
Classy.
So he was a two-way player. But it was
And
quite
I've got to
common
think
in
about it. It's interesting though, because sorry to jump in there, but how many of them are Pro Bowl caliber? How many of them even had a career that would be commensurate with a number one pick?
Kai Aldrich played in the All-Star game in 39 and 42, but back then. Chuck Bednarik, multi-time Pro Bowler, Pro Football Hall of Fame and NFL champion. Go back to 1960. Ron Yary was a Pro Bowler, multi-time Pro Bowler and Pro Football Hall of Famer. 19 Orlando Pace, Pro Bowler, Pro Football Hall of Famer and Super Bowl champion. Jake Long was multi-time Pro Bowler and he played for the University of Michigan. No greater honor in that. In 2013,
Stretching it a bit
Eric
there, but okay.
Fisher was a two-time Pro Bowler and a Super Bowl champion. So every single
So,
one of them has seen some form of success in the league.
yeah. Okay.
Fair enough.
But
Okay.
interesting enough, and this is probably indicative of how the group is viewed. I think a lot of us, other than Nick, probably was struggling there to even think about how relevant those guys were in the nicest possible way. And that's nothing to say because the game wouldn't work without these guys. But unfortunately, they don't really get much of the love, do they? They don't get the love that they deserve.
We don't really record any
People
stats
tend
for
to
them.
talk.
You don't
Yeah,
record
people tend
stats
to
for them
talk,
either, do you?
and they tend to talk about O-line as a whole unit, not
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
individuals.
Unless it's his sack rate was awful. He missed every block and whiffed on every sort. That's the only time these guys ever get any sort of.
I want to throw it back and get us onto the official O-line discussion for the 2026 draft by reminding everyone one of my favorite quotes by an offensive lineman of all time, and it was only last year, I think it was, by Will Campbell, when he was talking about the differences in the way you look at defensive ends and you look at offensive linemen. He said, if a defensive lineman gets one sack a game over 12 games, he is a potential first overall pick, if not definitely a top 5 pick. If an offensive lineman gives up one sack a game for 12 games, he's going to be working at Amazon.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is, as anyone who really knows ball will know, the quarterback is an insanely important position, but there are very few more important outside of that than the offensive linemen, the men who keep the quarterback up. And this is why quarterbacks every year in the NFL spend so much money at Christmas time buying their offensive linemen very nice presents, keeping them sweet. Because if you don't keep your offensive linemen sweet, you don't have a
They
very
don't
long
keep
career.
you upright. They don't keep you upright.
Nick.
And to be fair, there's no better line than the one Sandra Bullock says in The Blind Side when she says, the first payment you make is for the mortgage. That's your quarterback. The second payment is what you make for your insurance. That's your left tackle or right tackle if he's left-handed.
If you've got a left, yep.
Ultimately, that's how important the offensive line can be, depending on your position. But nobody likes to pay out for insurance. Nobody likes paying money, but sometimes you've got to pay big money to protect what's yours.
You need it.
There is something kind of a way I want to start this, and once we get into the actual players, Nick, I want you to I really do want you to take that on, but the discussions around the AEW group chats and things like that as well, when we talk about certain quarterbacks in certain positions, I mean, Hurdle the Line on Monday, we're talking, not Monday, the week before, we're talking about where they think, the likes of the Titans could go, where they could go with Jeremiah Love, and that might be a place that they go
anymore.
But actually, protect Cam Ward. That's what you need to be doing. The way that NFL teams should be looking at roster building is the quarterback should be the last piece after the offensive line. What are we looking at when building offensive lines? When we're watching this tape, Nick, what are you looking at? What are you looking for? And how does it change via position? I'm going to ask you first. And again, as an offensive lineman yourself and having played the position, what is that from your perspective? And then obviously everyone else, you chime in.
I think the thing for me, as I watch the sport, and we all watch the same sport, and we all watch the same sport evolve. And they talk about now how it all more emphasis is on the offense and attacking and scoring points as opposed to stopping them. You tend to see more like offensive interference as you see defensive. It tends to be more that the offense gets the rub of the green rather than the defender. I said that the other way around, but I know what I meant.
We know what you meant.
Yeah. So, but as the game changes, so does the needs of the player. So back, 10, 15, 20 years ago, when we're not talking about the likes of Mahomes and Lamar Jacksons and these athletic running style movable quarterbacks, we were talking about the likes of the Bradys, the Mannings, the Matt Ryans, who are all pocket passers. And from that point of view, you needed big tackles that could hold their ground, ensure that the pocket didn't collapse, and allow their quarterbacks time to pick a spot and throw the ball. But now, as the game evolves, and you see it's changed to more of a running style quarterback where they're moving about all over everywhere, you kind of need your tackles to be more athletic as well, because they need to move with the protection. If your quarterback is going to be moving right, and you know he's moving right because he's made that call in the huddle, then you need to be athletic enough to not only get off the edge who's going to be tackling you, but maybe get out to that tight end that's going to be hitting him in 2 seconds' time. So as one position like the quarterback changes, the evolution affects the positions in front of him. And it's not just the tackles, it's the guards and the centers as well. They need to become more athletic. And all the guys that you look through at the moment, they're all like good movers. I can't elite athleticism, elite movement, good feet, quick feet. These are all the things that I'm writing down about these tackles at the moment. Rapid footwork, immense size, but good speed. And that's what tackles and guards are being asked to do now. And it's very different from 20 years ago. So it's just an evolution of how the game is changing.
Yeah. Sam and I wouldn't know about the difference from 20 years ago because our youthfulness wouldn't allow for us to know that. I do. As we see the evolution of the offensive lineman from the position of a quarterback, at the end of the day, they're also susceptible to the evolution of the defensive end. And we're seeing faster, bigger, stronger, and more explosive defensive ends than ever before. So while the offensive line are accounting for more mobile quarterbacks, they're also left on islands and in put in horrible situations against just a different class of defensive end. How are you seeing that kind of thing evolve for the offensive linemen to have to deal with? And is there anything else that they're having to deal with?
Well, I think you're exactly right. There's two sides to this. Those offensive linemen are not only making the offense work, they've got to stop that defense coming towards them. And you've got these big, fast edges who are becoming more dynamic as well. That role does broaden out. And to Nick's point, you can't just plant your feet, anchor down, and try and keep them at bay now. You're going to have to deal with that lateral movement. You're going to have to deal with the defenses coming at you in different ways. So the evolution changes. Perhaps the body shape changes a little bit. We hear about, I'm sure we'll talk about arm length and some of those factors as well. That certainly comes into it as well. So you just broaden what you're looking at. It must be, incredibly difficult when you're sitting there with a board in some of these NFL teams trying to figure out how to differentiate between these players.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point about differentiation as well with these players, because as we've talked about, the O-line is a unit. The O-line needs to be cohesive. It doesn't work. We've seen it. You've seen it with teams where they've changed 4 or 5 of them, 4 of their starters up front, and the O-line just doesn't work very well in that first year because it takes a while to get used to. So it's very difficult. I can't imagine from a scouting and how to analyze that one versus that one when you've got, as you say, so many things to think of. Because going back to Nick's point, somebody with, like, for example, the Niners with Brock Purdy, who's more of a pocket passer but can move, versus, so they're looking at certain types of offensive linemen and whatever else. But then you'd look at a Ravens or a team with a very mobile QB. They're going to be looking
Lions. Jared Wheels Goff. Just wanted to throw that one out there, just to mention.
Yeah, renowned scramblers like Goff and Stafford, for example. They're going to be looking for
those wheelchair wheels.
They're going to be looking for very different things. And so, as you say, it's got to be really difficult, especially, and the way the game moves and the way that teams and the way that scouts and the way that everybody moves amongst teams. You'd be spending most of, because they look at these guys and they're looking at these guys already before the season's even kicked off, some of these scouts. But you imagine if your scout moves between teams or something and suddenly you're like, oh, I was looking for an offensive tackle that was able to plant and stay and whatever because the QB needed them there. Now I've got to switch this up and look at a completely different list of requirements.
Yeah.
Must be.
I guess with any position, it starts with the scheme and what's the philosophy of that offense. Are they going for more of a man thing,
Yeah.
where everything's moving together, or is it more zonal? And I guess that's your anchor. Use that word anchor again, but it's slightly different context in terms
We're
of
going to have to call it
how you
Adam's
want to play.
anchors.
Adam's anchors, maybe we'll come back to that next week. But be some sort of
Anchorman
philosophy to hang everything off of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sam, I was going to
I'm
ask you.
glad Adam's not called Wayne then.
Yay.
That's a very good point.
That'd be unfortunate.
Sam, I would say like the way that the draft falls for offensive linemen, as we've said, like it's never been a repeated position that's taken number one overall, 7 in history. But it is a position that year on year on year, you can almost guarantee an offensive lineman is taken in the top 5. And if they are not taken in the top 5, 1 or 2 are at least taken in the top 10. Because really, really good offensive linemen are so hard to come by at that level of at serious levels of talent. And once you get one in the building that's of a very high caliber, you want them in the building for 10 plus years. That's how long you are kind of seeing that investment for. You're running back, you might see them in the building past the rookie contract. Offensive linemen, you want to see them through 2, maybe 3 contracts. How does that, I think, seeing the way the free agency market goes for offensive linemen and how 2 or 3 premiums might hit and then the rest of it has to be how does that affect the way teams go into the draft? And how is that when you look at this year's draft? How do you see offensive linemen falling because of that?
I think probably especially I think the big key in terms of this year, I think, was obviously the Lindenbaum trade or free agency pickup. In terms of the level of the contract that he picked up compared to even the next centre below him. It just shows you don't see a lot of movement because, like you say, a lot of people are looking at very much long-term tackles, long-term offensive linemen, and I think that just it puts the emphasis on how important they are when it comes to drafting because it's not like you said, it's not like running backs where there's a plethora of them out on the market every single year. You know, you can maybe even pick up 2 or 3
in the
en
draft,
route every single time. You know, and this is, I think, and that's, you know, looking at what we talked about running backs before, that's the reason why running backs generally don't tend to be as high on priority because you know you can pick up 1 or 2 relatively good ones that'll do a job. Whereas because O-line, there isn't that availability and they do tend to stick around with teams for a period of time. Again, because of that unity, there's a certain way that they play, there's a certain way that they work with that unit. They become part of almost like, it seems like a family, and it's hard to then break away from said family. Whereas that's why they're more premium because you're not going to have that ability to be able to just go and I'll go and pick up an OT off the board. Most of the ones that are there because they're backups.
Nobody else wants them.
They've had a few issues or they're older. So I think that it's kind of it's almost the flip of some positions in terms of the importance of it and why I think they get drafted so highly and why they're so sought after. Because, like I say, you are looking at long term rather than 2-3 years, and I think that as well you can, you know, as we know with the first round, you can franchise tag them. It gives you an extra year. You know, you can take their 5th-year option. You can extend it over even just like 4 or 5 years, whereas you can't. Do you really want to be risking that with like a wide receiver or a running back? Probably not. So, you know, I think it's just down to the position. And I think because as well, a lot of these O linemen tend to be quite versatile in terms of can move along the line. You know, you tend to usually find a centre who could probably play guard. You tend to have a tackle who can play guard if he's not suited or built ready straight away for the tackle. So you do get a lot of movement. I mean, I can use the example of, Stephen Avila for us. He was a guard coming into our team. He then got moved to centre because we needed him to. He did an okay job. He's moved back out to guard. So it's that ability to be able to rely still on, say, like a handful of guys, but they can play multiple positions to be able to keep that harmony within the O line. So I think it's just a much more sought after position. It's just one that you need to invest your money and time in.
Yeah,
I think that's important what you mentioned there, Sam, about that sliding. As it's mentioned, you can slide a guard to centre and whatever else. You have that flexibility. It's interesting. It's usually interior offensive linemen that they talk about sliding here and there because tackles tend to be tackles. You don't tend to get them to slide to guard. It's not, as the tackle position seems to have slightly higher priority. I suppose
it's a different skill set.
It's a different skill set. Yeah.
Nick, how do you want us to go about this one? Are we going to prioritize? Do we want to do it similar to last week where we say, right, here are the tackles and here are the top? How do you want to do this?
I think I'm quite happy to give the top 3 on my board, and we can discuss those. If anyone's got them in a different order, if anyone's got somebody who's not in that list, I think that's sort of like the place to be.
Yeah. General consensus. Sorry, before you jump into there, Nick, do we think there's a general consensus of clear number 1, number 2, number 3, like we've talked about other roles, or is
I think there's a clear 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I think there's a clear 1 and 2. I think then it goes back to what you said about need and how are you going to play, and if you want a guy that's slightly more athletic as to a guy who's slightly bigger. So I think for me, the first 2 should probably be the same for everybody, and then the next 4 that I have could be in any order.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So
I just thought I'd throw it out there just to see if we're all on the same.
Yeah.
Well, what are your top 2?
So my top 2, I've got Francis Mariola at Miami, who was their right tackle. And my second man is Monroe Freeling out of Georgia. Now, every year, and I've said this on the pod before, every year I get attached to somebody who I see really low down and I'm really high on them, and everyone thinks I'm crazy, and everyone, but then I just watch as more and more people start paying attention, and on more and more draft boards, he climbs higher and higher and higher. And eventually I'm sat there going, well, I had him like this months ago. And Monroe Freeling is that guy. Last year it was Nick Imamwari, and he went and won a Super Bowl this year, the bugger. But so this Monroe Freeling at number 2 for me has been somebody I've been all over all year. But these 2 I think separate themselves from the rest of the group, and I expect them both to go in the top
15,
certainly the top 15, maybe even the top 12.
So the first question is, does anyone have a different top 2? I do.
My thing with
buttocks,
and the reason why I flip-flop between the 2, and I think this is mainly down to what Nick said, it's down to what you want and what you need in the draft. And I think the biggest thing that I think Monroe has over Fano is his ceiling is way higher. But my concern with Freeling is his inexperience. He has only had a year as a starter, and I just that puts me on edge a bit. But again, he has all of the qualities to be an elite tackle. It's just for a position that is so important, I do feel sometimes that experience does play a part. So for me, that's my only reason why I'd maybe drop him a spot. But at the moment, I currently have him 2.
Yeah, I had Fano in 2 as well. And I think for me, it was the experience. I think family pedigree of being around the NFL. I think I wrote down here he's played 2,204 snaps of 37 games, whereas Monroe is at 1,667. So just time, time at position, snaps he's faced. It's not much in it. But that's just why I chose Fano over him.
Yeah.
But again, you look at that and you think the plus points are, yes, he's got the experience, but then the flip side of, he's then less battered than the other guy. So it's, as you say, swings and roundabouts. It's not much in it, is there? You're splitting hairs in effect for these sorts of sides.
Over the last week, I have become more and more and more in love with Monroe Freeland. He's crept up to my top 3, just not quite in my top 2. Mainly for the reasons, again, as you said. But what I'll say is, I watched some of the tape of his last year when he came in at the end of the season in the playoffs, and he took over the starting job for the injured. I can't remember the name of who it was. He took over for being injured, and he was not good, right? He was not good, but that's not. I'm not taking that against him. If anything, to watch the way he's progressed this year and to see just how quickly and how well he's taken to the role as a tackle full time, coming from a basketball background, by the way.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal, and he is such a fan. He's very, very, very good. But it still comes for me with a lot of, as really good as he is, there are quite a few more things that still need polishing up. He needs to get some things a bit tidier. He needs to get, whereas with your Fanos of the world or your Maui Goers of the world, you are talking things that are the downsides to them are coachable. They're coachable in one off season, maybe in the rookie year. Whereas for Monroe Freeland, you're looking at him as like in year 2, he will really come out. Year 3, like you might want him in a rotation in the first year.
But I suppose you'd think most of these are probably going to be rotational their first year, aren't they? Depending.
I don't
where
think so.
go.
Not with Maui Goa.
No, he's the only pro ready plug and play tackle that I've got, Francis. Because I think, just before I go on to him, I'll just touch back on Spencer Fano. I get what Sam said and Adam said about Fano, but for me, I think the reason I can't put him ahead of Monroe Freeling is the fact that while I don't consider arm length to be that bad a problem, because a lot of people say about arm length, and I didn't have a problem with Will Campbell's arm length last year, and while he didn't play well because of his injury towards the end of the season, early on he was immense, and he didn't have a problem at 33 inches. So while I don't think arm length is as big a problem as people make out, for me, the fact that Spencer Fano is smaller than all the other tackles, lighter than all the other tackles, and has already in the combine was doing drills for guard and centre positions as well. It's almost as if mentally he's already accepted himself that he might not be a tackle. And that's where it's nothing to do with what anyone else thinks, because you can prove people wrong. But if you're already giving that up and saying, "Well, I might be a guard, so I'll do the guard job," that to me is sort of something that I don't like in somebody who's already showing defeat at the. This is your dream, man. You should be doing everything you possibly can, and yet he's like, "Well, I'll do a guard drill instead." That's the only reason why. Yeah, that's the only reason why I can't put him ahead of Freeling. And I've got nothing against him as a player. He's, elite movement, great zone blocker. He can play left tackle. He played right tackle. He moved over to right to accommodate Caleb Lomu, who's in my next group. And that's because Lomu was a better left tackle than right. So he's got great versatility, but it's just, he needs to have that mass and that
not
strength.
A plus. Yeah, sometimes that's not so much of a plus, is it? As you say, especially if I didn't realize he'd done that at the com. I didn't realize he'd kind of gone, maybe I am a guard, and maybe he's being his agent or somebody's had a word in his ear and said, try harder, as Adam
Yeah.
says, hedge your bets, get the metrics in so that people know. Yeah, but it does, as you say, Nick, it also smacks a little of not believing in himself, maybe.
Yeah. I mean,
I will say in his defense that I think when you know you're not going to be you probably know you're not going to be the number one tackle, you may want to show your ability to be versatile, not because you believe you can't be a tackle, but just because there's so many times, especially when you look at maybe, and say take the Rams for example, we McVay likes to have linemen who can move around the line, and although I think he's much better than what we've currently got at right tackle, I also think he could easily slot in at right guard or left guard if we needed him. I don't think he doesn't have the
out and out.
Yeah, he doesn't have the Mawigoa element that he can be a left tackle, and I think that's something that is maybe more of a concern, and maybe why he isn't number two. Again, it's one of the reasons why I flip flop between the two. But I think if you're looking for someone who is going to be an out and out right tackle, I think he is the right choice if depending on where you draft him. I think the only way that if a second tackle isn't taken in the first 15 rounds, I think he'll be the next one. But if someone's going to go in that top 15, I think they would rather take Freeling just because of that boom or bust element with him. And I think people may see more of the upside with Freeling than they will the potential downsides that are there with Freeling. But obviously with those sorts of positions, in that sort of draft capital, you're always going to be looking at the upside more so than the downside.
One of the things I want to say though with with Spencer Fano is, see, when I'm putting him up against Marigoa, and I think that on certain days I would put him ahead of Marigoa and have him as my number one tackle in the draft. And I think one of the differences here is with Marigoa and Fano, I think both of them are pretty much equally as you can plug them and play him week one. The difference here being both of them are fantastic athletes at the position. The only problem I have with Fano is, as Nick has mentioned in particular, it's not just that he is lighter. He has such a slim lower frame. And as I'm looking at my notes here, it's the slim lower frame. And that's sometimes where he can get caught out, and it's going to be on bull rushes. But what I'm looking at is not just simply the anchor and the what was the word? I did have the sustain. So Maui Goa has, out of this draft, and what I think is going to make him one of the best tackles coming out, and a starter in the NFL for 10 years, he has an elite anchor. That first step is elite and sets him up so well, and he has such an incredible sustain. I challenge anyone to go back and find me a rep, at least from this year, where he's pushed back more than 2 yards at any point. He is not, and more often than not, he's pushing defensive ends back 2 yards, right? Whereas Spencer Fano does not have as good an anchor, still extremely good anchor. He doesn't quite have the sustain. He's able to kind of hold people in position. He's not necessarily pushing back. He's not necessarily getting pushed back. For me, it's how you block the counters and how you deal with the counters. Both of them have elite footwork. I just think Spencer Fano's got the slightly better footwork when dealing with counters and doesn't get caught by counters. Whereas with Maui Goa, he is a brick wall. And if I told you, if I ran into him now, being the size I am, Nick and Gary, you've seen me at my physical size, I would be in a hospital for a month because he is a brick wall. What you find is if a defensive end can line up past the 9 and get some sort of leverage on his outside shoulder, it's finding the struggle for him to kind of counter along with that, with him being so powerful. Yeah, I will open that back up now because I realised that was a rant, and I did not realise that sounded so smart.
Get you doing your homework. Get you doing your homework.
The strength and power of Mariota when you're talking about a 6'5", 300, well over 300-pound man. That star shape as he's set. In that star position with those wide arms and those strong legs, you have got to be some big powerful edge to move in.
Oh yeah.
We talked about back when we had the preview for the Natty, and we talked about how that game between Indiana and Miami was going to be won in the trench, and it was going to be the edges of Indiana against Marcus Bell and Mariota of Miami, and the other way around, and how you may not see an entertaining game elsewhere, but that trench battle between those two sides was going to be massive, and it was an absolute war there, and I think that's just it's when you look at what the sort of power this guy has from zero and just setting that block. I love him. If you need a tackle from me, Mariota has got to be the first one off the board by a country mile and a little bit more.
Well, what's interesting with Mariota, I completely agree. He has got to be number one, given all of the things we talked about. But interesting, when you look at his arm length, it's only 33.25 inches as well. He's 26th percentile, but because of everything else, that's not really a factor for him. Everything else.
Yeah.
Makes up for it.
What you'll find is when we're looking at things like arm length, not every time. Nick's just mentioned Will Campbell, right? Started short arm length, still started, went off to a fantastic start in his NFL career. What held him back towards the end was not his arm length, it was the injuries, right? And there are ways you can combat this, and it's your positioning, your hands positioning, where you get in, and how you get those hands moving. One of the things that does get me with Maui Goa is if you watch some of those longer, more sustained drives that Miami would have, those hands wander a little bit. I mean, Spencer Fano's got got much more consistent hand placement, especially. But my main problem with Fano is he's got the hand placement and they're there. He gets too wide with his hands. Boy, does he draw some holding flags, right? Which again, these are the things you've got to deal with when you've got the measurables of slightly shorter arms. There are only so many ways you can get that leverage. You're probably not getting inside on pads, and you're getting battered out. So you've got to figure out where to hold. And Maui Goa's hands can be a bit erratic sometimes, and Fano, he's too busy holding the outside and pulling flags, which is a serious concern if you're constantly drawing holding flags.
Yeah, and also, these guys are going to be going to teams, as we've talked about before, going to teams that are already, usually not that great.
Right.
It's the nicest possible way. So, the last thing they need is drives to be broken up all the time because of silly holding penalties. That's going to just kill any sort of momentum that they may even be getting. So it's something that has to be coached out of them. But then you say that about every college player coming out. The rules are different. There's a lot of cornerbacks, a lot of defensive backs that we'll get into who are sticky and handy. Yeah.
If there's one thing I've got written down for all three of these top three guys in the negative, is they struggle with upper body leverage. Even someone like Monroe Freeling, he needs to add some strength. He struggles with leverage on occasion when he's up against a huge edge. And I think that will come with time, that will come with coaching. But all three of them, on occasions, have an inconsistency when it comes to leverage. And that is, to be honest, the only consistency between all three of them is they're all inconsistent.
Consistently inconsistent.
But that's not a slight on any of them, to be honest. It's just one thing that appears in all three evaluations.
And what is that, Nick? Is that being too high? They need to be lower, and they're not staying low.
Yeah, I think they're starting off too high, so that the hands are too high, the body's up, and rather than planting by your feet and your knees and your thighs and then springing forward, you're almost like up and ready to go over, and if an edge goes down low, you just get caught too high. And so I think it's just a bit about coaching and starting position.
Well, Nick went muted.
Nick muted himself.
Nick muted himself.
He muted himself. He got so into it, he tapped his ear.
My earphone started falling out my ear. I'm trying to put it back in without. Yeah. So it's coachable, though. Ultimately, it's coachable, and you can't expect whether you're the number one pick or whether you're the number, Mr. Irrelevant. I can't remember what number it is.
262.
There you go. You always will need coaching. Doesn't matter who you are. You're coming out of college facing some professionals that have been in the game 10 years. You're always going to need coaching, and that's not a slight on anybody.
Yeah, and you look at, you go to, say, for example, give me one of the top 5 teams that one of these a top 10 team that one of these could genuinely go to. Titans,
Browns.
right? You're coming up against what were the meanest pass rushes in the entire league in the Texans defensive rush, right? That's with all due respect to India. That's not the Indiana defensive rush. They were mean for a college defensive rush. They are not mean for a night. You're going to start coming up against Danielle Hunters, Myles Garrett's, Aiden Hutchinson's, Max Crosby's, Trey Hendrickson's. These are different leagues now, boys.
I was going to say, if you're going to want to be a tackle anyway, you're probably going to want to go to the Browns. Yeah, at least you're not going to face Garrett.
But do you know what you are going to get to? You are going to face Garrett, but you're going to face Garrett in practice. And if you're facing Myles Garrett in practice every day, you are going to
get better,
quite the offensive lineman on game week.
Steel polishes steel, as they say, or whatever it is. Yeah,
iron sharpens iron.
That's the one.
But it's like Aiden Hutchinson and Panay Sewell like to talk about it all the time. Like, they hate each other in practice, but both of them are two very excellent players at the position because they go at each other in practice. But I'm gonna say I won't move on to Monroe Freeling. We've spoke quite a lot about the other one. One of the things I saw when looking at Monroe Freeling, and this is something that we can share some. One of the things that I saw was how he's always got his head up. And he's what, 6'7". I don't know how many pounds he is.
6'6", 315.
6'6", 350. So still a big dude coming from basketball, very, very athletic. That shows. But I think it was against Ole Miss. I'm watching a linebacker get thrown around like he was absolutely nothing by Monroe Freeling. The way he's able to battle the counters. But then there was one where he comes in, he pins the tackle. It was on a run play. He pins the tackle. The edge. Comes in, hits the linebacker. Then when the linebacker's out the way, heads straight back up again, and he's up further down the line. Stockton scored a touchdown on it, a rushing touchdown. But it's constantly, right, that block's done, heads up, where's next? That block, okay, heads up, where next? Where do I need to be going? And that level of continuously wanting to hurt people is
admirable.
So good to see if you're not a linebacker.
Yeah. The thing is that, and we have to counter with this, and we'll say this about everybody that's coming out of the draft. They will be, as Nick just mentioned, going up against professionals who've been doing this for 10 years. So they're all going to get a rude awakening. They're not all going to be easy to, throw around linebackers like they've been used to. So, although, as you say, they've got a lot of good tape on these guys. Everything with a pinch of salt.
That's the thing. You're trying to find holes. You're trying to pick holes in. These are the best of the best college players coming out into the draft. These are elite. It doesn't matter who you play for. If you are if you are in the draft and you are going to play this game professionally, you are an elite player.
Yeah.
There's only so many of these positions in the game. They talk about how there's only 32 head coaching positions and whatever. Yeah, but to be on that roster of 53 players doesn't matter whether you're the third, playing for the 32nd best team or the first best team. The fact is that in your position, you are that smallest 0.5% of the best in your field. And it's so hard to criticize these guys.
Yeah, and that's sometimes when you're doing this analysis and grading, if you like, it does get a little like, you forget that these are 32 of the best, and and you're nitpicking and you're kind of saying, oh, this guy's not that good compared to that guy. Hang on, they're still.
We are talking. I think we are talking marginal differences as well.
Yeah.
The words I used to describe Jared Goff on a Sunday afternoon while I've got my mouth full of Doritos sat in this chair, none of your business. I will continue to throw such verbiage of abuse. And I don't care. I know better while I'm sat in this chair than anything that any head coach has done ever in history. As we all
we
do.
forgot that you do know
It is true. When I'm sat in this chair on a Sunday or a Saturday, I know better. I know what's correct.
You know more than anybody else.
I went downstairs, came back up. I'm out of breath, but he's unathletic. He's so unathletic.
Yeah, he needs to toughen up and needs to get in the gym. Yeah.
Look, we spoke about Monroe Freeling, Francis Marigoa, and Spencer Fano. Couple of names also will pop up in terms of like Caden Proctor, for example, consistent thrown out there. Potentially last year was one of the top two offensive linemen going into the draft. Where do we see guys like that? And are there any other sleepers that we need to be looking out for?
Well, I think Nick's already mentioned Caleb Lomu.
Yeah, Nick can go through his 4 to 7. I think you had.
I've got 4 to 6. I've got 4 to 6. I've got Caden Proctor at 4. I've got Caleb Lomu at 5. Now, again, like I touched on when we were talking about Spencer Fanning, Caleb Lomu can play left or right, but he's a better left than Spencer Fano is left. So Fano ended up moving to the right to accommodate Lomu, who's a year younger. Now, at 6, I have a man that I do quite like in Max Ianshaw. This Arizona State. We talked about that young lad from Ireland being an absolute bear, but between Caden Proctor being a Grizzly and Max Ianshaw being a black bear, these two are absolutely huge men. But I think I put Caden Proctor at 4 because he's the best tackle if all you want is one of those pocket tackle guys. If you want a guy just to hold the pocket, hold his line, and not give up an inch, Caden Proctor is your man at 6'7" and 360 pounds. But if you need a mobile tackle, he's not going to be your man. So it's really hard to say he's the best. He's the best tackle in one department, but he's also the worst tackle in the other department. That's why you sort of like find him in that middle ground sort of thing. And I think his home will depend much on what you need him for.
Yeah.
And if both Lomu and Ianshaw go ahead of him, I'm not gonna kick and moan and say that's wrong, because I think that's just a scheme fit decision.
Scheme fit, yeah.
But all 3 of these guys, to be honest, could go in any order. I mean, Patriots at 31, any one of these 3 could still be there if you're lucky. So
it falls the right way, yeah.
Don't know. Yeah, I don't. It's really hard to say what the order should be for these 3. I think it's more what you need. If you need a big right tackle, then probably Proctor's your bet. If you need a big left tackle, Ianshaw is probably your bet. If you need someone who's a bit mobile that can do both, then Lomu's probably your next one up. So it honestly does depend on what as a scheme fit the next team needs as to who's who's best. But that's the order I put them in.
Are you sure that in that kid who used to play for City?
Iniacho.
That would be
Iniacho.
Iniacho, not Iheanacho.
Iheanacho.
Iniacho.
Are there any sleepers that you're looking at in day 3 that you think, obviously, like as is with most positions, if you're going in day 3, you're probably a rotational piece somewhere that you think could be
right.
Yeah, no one ever gets a starter that late in the draft, do they?
Okay, my biggest sleeper for day 3 is Isaiah World, and Adam will be able to talk about him far better than me. But this is a man who, I'll be honest, if he was fit, he would be my number 7. He is that good. But because of his ACL injury and the fact that he's not going to be fit to play till next year, you're going to end up redshirt. Whoever drafts him is going to end up redshirting him, IRing him for the whole year anyway. So he's almost a steal in the 3rd round. If you can, same goes for Chris Bell at wide receiver. We talked about him last week. If you can afford to draft somebody for next year and not this year, World and Bell are both steals, because I can't see World going before the start of round 4. Yeah. But he's probably end of first, beginning 2, of second level tackle, and I love him. I
had him round 2 before the whole injury stuff kind of kicked in. If I was on the premise that he would be fit, he was for me I would probably have put him in the category of somewhere in around the 5 or 6 in with Caden Proctor and Iheanacho. He would have been in that bracket for me.
Iheanacho.
Yeah, he would be that sleeper. Adam, you know more about him because you've seen him all season. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, agree. I can echo everything you said. Really solid player for us, doing really well. I mean, he had the best. I mean, he's so experienced. He played best part of 50 games in his career. Where did we get to in terms of snap count for him? Multiple thousands of snap. If he just made that offensive line just hum, is a big part of that for us before the injury. Problem with an ACL as well, when you're that big, it can recover, but how good are you really when you've got to be mobile and you've got the lateral movement is going to be a big part of what you're going to need to do. So that's a real shame for him. But there's so much value there. He'll get over that. He's got so much experience at the college level. I'm sure if he comes into a team, sits for a year, does all his recovery work and learns a playbook, he'll be a very, very useful asset for someone in a year's time.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see, I reckon, as horrible as it or as daft as this might sound. If you're gonna tear your ACL, you kind of want it when an NFL team might pick you up, because you're about to get some of that best recovery that you can get for an ACL tear. And with the technology that does exist nowadays in the medical science, the wide receivers are getting taken top 15 with ACL tears that exist. Jameson Williams 2-3 years ago, and look at him now having the career he's having in the NFL. So look at Jordan
Tyson. Look at Jordan Tyson, ACL, MCL, PCL, and he's still top 15 pick.
Yeah. So hopefully, fingers crossed, like he gets into the NFL. Someone's willing to take that time with him and see him through the rehab, but he'll get put through some really good rehab, and hopefully, hopefully with medical science these days, come back even stronger. As far as interior goes, we've spoken a lot about the exterior. What about the interior, Nick? There's one name that springs up above all else. Who is it, and who else comes after it?
I've got 2 guards that I think deserve a first round grade. Now, that's not to say that the second guy might fall out the first round. I don't think he will. I think he'll probably be a late first round pick. But the names are Vega Oiane and Emmanuel Pregnon. Now, Pregnon, like I said, Pregnon could fall to the very top of round 2, but I think he might just scrape in at the back end of 1. But these, Oane's just on an island on his own. Between him and Fano, if he's going to end up playing guard, these two are really good. He's a plug and play, ready to go. Experienced, great pass protector. He's that sort of type of guard that you need if you're going to have a less than mobile tackle, like say somebody like Caden Proctor. Oane's the kind of guard you need next to him, who's very mobile, very quick, can sort of cover the gaps as well. So
he's also elite at run blocking as well.
Yeah.
You look at some of the other players. I think one of the biggest skills that I think that especially for someone who you're probably going to use, I would say probably somewhere along the line of probably. I mean, it can play either guard, but I would maybe be looking at right guard in the sense of opening that pocket on a weaker, I suppose, tackle on the left hand side of the left hand side. He can make a massive difference in opening up running lanes, and I think his ability reminds me a little bit of Kevin Dotson, who we had. I mean, his ability to open up lanes this year has just been phenomenal, and I think he has that ability to be able to do that. My only concern with him is the fact that he's not an elite athlete in space. He kind of needs that rigidness around him, if that makes sense. He needs that kind of almost to be kind of forced into a little box to be able to do that position, which is what the guards tend to do anyway.
Momentum downhill, isn't it?
Yeah. Point that way, go that way. He needs to have that sort of structure, as you say, around him. He needs to have a solid tackle outside him, a solid center inside him, and just go, right, follow this track, go that way.
Yeah, I think he's the sort of guard that I think would struggle when you see the sort of. I mean, to be fair, everyone struggled against, but the movement of like someone like an Aaron Donald, where he would just 1 minute he's there, the next minute he's over the other side of the offensive line. I don't think he would be able to cope with them. To be fair, not many people did cope with it, but I think that's where he would struggle, is the fast moving tackles on the other side, whereas most tackles tend to be quite physical and want to kind of, I suppose, collapse the pocket, and he'll be able to manage that quite well.
One of the things that worries me about Oane is his fitness, is his conditioning. He seems to burn out quickly. Mm-hmm. If you watch some of the Penn State games where they have long drives, not so much in distance, but in just taking their time and slowly building up the drive and, taking a while to get down the field. He tends to, the quicker he goes, the quicker he burns out. And he's almost got that 100% fitness, and every drive, every snap takes a little bit, like when you were playing Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat or whatever, and every hit you took a little bit out of your power bar. And I think that's the sort of thing he's like. It takes, as the more he's asked to do over time, the more it takes effect on him. So I think he needs to improve his conditioning. But again, every player is going to need to improve their conditioning when they come into the pro level anyway. So I don't think that's something that you can say, well, I'm not drafting this guy because he's got no fit. It's just something that you naturally have to do at that level.
Yeah. It's managing that trade-off, isn't it? Because he's 320 and, extra cardio, extra fitness. Does that 320 start creeping down? He becomes a little bit lighter and loses some of them, what makes him special.
And also, it's just a case of building experience and growing up from the age of 21 to even 23. Like in a short space of time, within a year, he'll be a completely different person to who he was at 21, and that'll be, he will be more physical, he will be more adept to the NFL. But at this stage, it's those sorts of things where I think he then needs to probably spend an off season hammering that conditioning in terms of
Conditioning
building
work,
up those.
Who was the guy that got
those
drafted
skills.
this year? Sorry, it's made me think. There was a guy. There was a big tackle or a big O-line that got drafted. I think it was the Bucks.
Oh, the big
And
man, the
the
400
big
pounder.
400-pound guy, and they've put him basically on a conditioning, and he's got to
Was
get.
that the guy from Florida?
I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was he wasn't. I think he was undrafted. He was a
They released
UDFA,
him.
wasn't he?
Desmond
They
Watson.
They
released him.
released.
Desmond
Couldn't get
Watson.
him down. Couldn't get him.
They put him, so he wasn't even able to go onto during camp. He wasn't allowed to go on the field, and they basically told him that he had to lose up to, was it something like 60 pounds in order to be essentially taken, and he didn't manage to lose that. He lost a good amount, but he didn't
lost a
lose
fair
that
bit.
much.
He couldn't get that
They
down.
they then released him. They then brought him back in because they were going to use him as part of the tush push, and then never used him. So he then got released again.
He honestly, they did bring him back. They never actually gave a official weight for him at the box, but he clocked in at his pro day at 464.
He was a big boy.
Do you remember when
Oh
they
my
had him
God.
in? Was it the Cure Bowl when they had him? They
They
handed him
used
the
him as a
ball to go
running
for a
back.
first down.
Just
Yeah, they used him as a running back. Just gave him
Yeah.
the ball, and he just ran over.
Just
people.
go that way. It's like, yeah, nobody's tackling that. Reminds me of the fridge in '85 or whatever it was.
Funnily enough, the
There's a
article I've got
reference
up
that
here.
nobody else will get apart from Nick there.
Oh, I got that one.
I got the
80s?
fridge reference. Thank you very much. To be fair, the article that I've got up here that was talking about him references William Refrigerator Perry. To be fair, as well.
In terms of those two guards, though, I think they're the two. Ione is the one, but I do think Pregnon,
Pregnon.
yeah, he is, for me, he's the outright two. I think there's clear, for me, there's three, and I think they all easily fit in those three positions. There's no
Bisontis, third one.
Bisontis is my third one, yeah, Chase Bisontis. But again, with Pregnon, and obviously, again, Adam, you'll be able to talk more about him being from Oregon. But again, power and movement, I think he was, some of his elite talents. His pass protection reliability, again, if you want someone who's basically going to stand there and protect your quarterback, he's probably the guy to do it. And he does have a significant amount of experience as well.
It's his hand speed, lightning fast combinations with his hand. When you watch the tape, they just stick out. It sticks out like a sore thumb. How quick? Sorry, Sam. Is how speedy his arms and hands are. It's immense.
I do think on that flip side is I do think he has a tendency to overextend and over lunge a bit, and I don't think he's necessarily has the lateral agility that matches those hands. That's the problem. It seems you can see a bit discoordinated, or not as coordinated as it should be. But
I've got written down, in compared to his hand speed, his feet speed is too slow.
Yeah,
because it's almost like his hands are going so quick, his feet can't keep up.
Yeah,
you see a toddler that runs. When a toddler that runs, he's nicked some chocolate. He's nicked Gary's chocolate off the floor, and he's running away. And,
catching strays! Tamed, wow!
And you see that toddler, and his feet are going so quick, and his hands just holding this chocolate bar, going nope. He's the other way. His hands are so quick, but his feet look so slow in comparison.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gary, I didn't mean for you to catch a stray then. It was
It
was just a good analogy.
I mean, there's 12 ton of Kit Kats out there. You might not add that a little bit extra, right?
Well, someone's got hold of them. Someone's got hold of them, Fletch.
Yeah, supposedly provided by Fletch. I've not seen a single one yet.
Because I've told you, the feds need to move from the storage unit soon. The feds move from the storage unit, I will start sending them out.
Yeah. The thing with Pregnon as well is he's well travelled, because we talk about him being a duck. He was a duck last year, but he was at USC before that, and he was in the Mountain West, I think, with Wyoming before that. So
he's interesting though. He's seen different schemes, and he's been through a number of different coaches. So the level of experience is not just one guy who's told him for 4 years. That's interesting as well. That adds a little wrinkle, doesn't it?
Yeah, and almost just outgrowing the level as well, sort of going through the Mountain West and then
progressing
stepping
up.
USC and then Trojans catching a straight here, moving on to Oregon from
moving up
USC,
to bigger and better things.
bigger and better things.
I wouldn't want to be at USC either. I'd move on as well.
Yeah. Excel Trucks last year.
I turned them down.
Nothing to do with paying less tax in Oregon, of course.
That's why I turned them
down. How dare you?
But talking about late rounders, I know you asked me about tackles. If there's two guards that I like late on, it's Jeremiah Wright out of Auburn and DJ Campbell out of Texas. Because these two, they're slightly undersized compared to the other guys, but they've got tape to prove that they can do the job. And sometimes guards may be in that position where you can get away with being slightly undersized if you're good enough and coached well. So just for those looking back later in the rounds, I think DJ Campbell and Jeremiah Wright could be good picks as well.
Especially if you have a veteran centre as well.
If you can lean on that inside guy, and as you say, if you've got a veteran tackle and a veteran centre, then you can coach those guards up, and you can hide some of maybe their inadequacies or the weaknesses initially.
Also, again, having a much more as a lighter, smaller framed guard. If you're a team that maybe does a lot more.
Sorry, I'm just thinking that when you say a lighter, smaller frame guards, and we're still talking guys who are 295.
Oh yeah, we're still talking like a guy who would run through all of us.
It's just like it does make me chuckle when we're like saying
instead of him being 8 foot wide, he's
350,
7.5 foot wide. But no, I think it's especially if you're looking at someone who you want to play a much more like you have a Lamar Jackson or you have a someone who's a bit more of a movable quarterback. When you're thinking of those sorts of like screenplays and that way, you're going to have. If
you've got an outside zone run game, you're going to want your guards pulling, and those sort of your run game consists of outside zone. Then you want a guard who's flexible, able to kind of get off and get around that corner. So. Yeah. Those are some of the things that somebody might take a punt on one of those guys later on.
So just so we can begin to start wrapping it up.
We haven't even talked centres yet, have we?
We'll move on to the centre position.
We don't need to mention them. None of them are going to be more than a second if they're lucky.
I don't think there's Nick, from your point of view, have you got any higher than Day?
I've got Connor Lew out of Auburn. He might make the very back end of 3, but the fact that he suffered an ACL in October, he's another one that I think every player who suffers an injury falls, whether it be Benjamin Morrison last year, Jamod McCoy this year is going to fall lower than he should do. So while I say maybe Connor Lew probably when fit could fall to the back of the 3rd, I don't think he is. I think he's going to safely be a day 3 pick just because of his injury. But him and Jake Slaughter out of Florida, they're the two centers that I think deserve a mention because they were elite in their position.
I have Sam Hecht as a 3rd as well. I think he'll be a sort of 5th, 6th pick, probably the sort of position that I think he will be good in a special teams situation. He would fit that sort of, because if you think of
long snapper type of,
maybe someone who can provide a bit of long snapper ability. Again, he has clean technique and positioning. I think that he lacks any physical traits whatsoever. That's the only problem.
I was going to say, for me, he's just a little undersized.
Yeah,
if you're going a big tackle and a smaller guard, like we just talked about, you want that centre to be experienced. Now, if you're going the other way and you're bringing in an inexperienced centre, do you then really want to bring in a guy who's undersized? Because then you're relying on your guards to be bigger than they probably need to be. And not to mention, if your quarterback's mobile, You're opening yourself to more. I'm not got a problem with him,
Yeah, that's why I
but
was
it's
thinking he
just
was more of a fifth, maybe sixth, seventh round pick because of the
Late
fact
round
that you know you
flyer
can.
type.
He could easily be someone that you stick in as a backup center or a third center
yeah.
that you can then train up into that position, get him a bit more physical, get him a bit more, because again, center is a really difficult position I find because again, if you aren't able to develop good harmony and good communication and that with your quarterback, you may as well not bother playing as center because you are reliant so much on building that relationship with them. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's literally going to be sticking his hand against your ass, so you're going to have a good relationship with him.
Buying dinner.
Spin it back to the beginning.
No comment I have there was appropriate.
When you spin it back to the beginning and you talk about Spencer Fano, I think if you said to me, right, okay, Fano's not going to play tackle, he's going to play guard, where are you going to take him? Well, I would probably take him ahead of Pregnon, but below Vega. But then if you said to me, right, okay, Fano's going to play centre, where are you going to take him? If he's playing centre, I'm going to take him behind these two guys because these two guys are elite at that position. Whereas Fano, you're just trying, not so much shoehorn it, you're not shoehorning him, but you're sort of like, it's not his elite position, it's not his best position.
Yeah.
So in respect, Fano's a perfect example. If he's staying as tackle, yes, he's probably 3 or 4. If he's a guard, he's probably the second one on the board. If he's a centre, he's probably going to be 3 at best. So that gives you an idea of where sort of one player could be across the line, across the front line.
And then that's when it starts coming into scheming fits and all of that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Do we think that with the level of this year's draft, do we think more O-line get drafted earlier than they normally would?
It's so hard to tell because it's a need basis.
I know.
And a scheme fit. And, if the wrong kind of player is available, you're not going to take him.
I think there's enough that could get in there. I think
are there enough elite O-line this year, or is the O-line level not as good, but the rest of the draft also isn't massively great?
For me, there's 4 tackles that can make the first round, could make the first round, and I think there's 1 guard, maybe 2. I'm not convinced on the second one that could make it. So you're probably looking at 5
O-line.
I mean, I don't have the numbers. I don't have the numbers in front of me as to how many would typically make it, and I can't think off the top of my head how many typically make it into a first round.
Again, it's dependent on year and depending on need, isn't it? I'd imagine it's 5. It's an average of at least 5. I should imagine. I'm just wondering if this year, from an offensive point of view, there aren't that many. When we're looking at it from our mock draft that we're running through in the AAW, it's like there's a lot of.
Last year, I had 3 tackles with a first round grade. This year, I've given 6 a first round grade. So I think tackle wise, I think you've got far more depth this year than you did last year. But I think it's.
So on average, 7 to 9 offensive linemen are usually taken in the first round, on average. But that can also be as low as 4 to 5, and as high as 10 to 11.
10 to 12, yeah. So depending on the year and depending on needs.
And I think you've got to think, if you look at the first round as it stands, there are a fair few who may need an offensive lineman or really benefit from an offensive lineman, but you don't know what trades are going to happen between now and the draft, and you don't know what trades are going to happen on the day. And
Here's
one
a
thing
question for you, Nick. Then are any of your first round graded tackles, shall we say, would you foresee anyone trading up for them? Are they that good? Is there a one player there that somebody goes, I need a tackle. I'm at 14. Can't remember who's at 14, Finns or something like that. I need to go get this guy. Or
No, I think
14 is
really.
the who's
Ravens?
after us? Yeah, Ravens.
Mm,
They're
so
not
they
going to
were-
want it.
they're not.
We
But
may
I
want to
just
tackle a 13. We may want to tackle a 13 as an example.
I think really, if you're tackle hunting, let's say, I think you're probably more likely going to wait. The interesting thing I find with the tackle position is if you mirror it with the edge position that they're going to be opposing, for me, I think once you go past 10 in the edge level, I think you're showing a real bad lacking, a drop in quality. Past that sort of Dennis Sutton and Romelio Height level, who are probably second, third
cliff,
rounders.
isn't it? Yeah, then it's a cliff.
I think there's quite a big drop at that edge level, whereas I think the tackle level drop is a bit more gradual, and I think you can probably get away with getting a good tackle maybe 12 to 15 level, as opposed to the edge that drops off at 10. So if you're needing an edge and a tackle, you need to be picking your edge first.
Edge first, and whatever tackle is available then the next time you roll around.
The quality and depth will drop off quicker. Whereas if you don't need an edge, then maybe you're going to look at picking. And I think that's what, if I bring it back to myself, I think that's what might help the Patriots in that there are a lot of teams wanting edge defenders. And so you'll probably find those first 6, 7 edge defenders will go quite high. Well, you can't have 5 wide receivers going high and 7 edge defenders going high and some safeties and some corners and 7 tackle and quarterbacks, and then 7 tackles all go by 31. It's not possible. Yeah. So even at 31, the Patriots are going to get some quality in a position that they need. And I think it all just depends on who needs what and when as to where the depth in quality is going to be. But there is a bigger drop-off earlier at edge level than there is at tackle level.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think there's also, when you look at other positions, I was saying, I think, like using quarterback, for example, normally, again, you would probably have 2 or 3, maybe even 4 or 5 quarterbacks that would probably go in the first round, which then sees other positions drop. This year, you're looking at 1, 2 at best.
Yeah.
It's, and that's where you're probably then going to see a few more corners being taken in the first round, probably a few more tackles being taken in the first round. Maybe that second guard goes in the first round. That's what tends to. It's just the way it all plays out, isn't it? But
could you imagine being stupid enough to be someone that you'd take it like, I don't know, 16 for the Jets and be stupid enough to take Ty Simpson? Could you imagine being that daft?
Jets are going to jet.
Anybody who drafts Ty Simpson at 16 is an absolute crazy idiot anyway. What kind of idiot would do that?
What kind of idiot would do that? It's the same sort of idiot who would draft Vega Leone over Monroe Freeling, though, wouldn't it? Monroe Freeling was on the board and somebody takes Leone over him. Don't they, Nick?
No. I needed a guard. I took a guard.
With Freeling on the board.
Guard.
Yeah.
I think my issue was I didn't see Sadiq was still on the board, thank you. Mine was not Monroe Freeling. He'd gone.
No, I think the Jets will do that because they don't want to get sniped. They want Simpson, but they'll ideally want Simpson at 33. But I think they're worried that the Cards or somebody will sneak in late first. Seattle will probably trade down, and that 32nd pick is then open, which is 1 above the Jets, and therefore they're worried about losing out to another team and getting him.
If you go back to the conversation we were having at the very beginning when the pod started, and we were talking about Denver might trade up just to secure Kenyon Sadiq, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to the conversation I had about quality in that top 120. I think Seattle and the Patriots are both prime targets to drop a couple of spots.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to trade with Seattle just to watch somebody then trade with the Patriots for the same guy. But I think the Jets need an edge with their first pick. But if they take anybody, they can't
If they take anybody
Simpson.
but Arvell Reese, then they're...
Yeah, they can't take Simpson at 16, though. They need far too much. Simpson's got to be a 33 or a jump back in because...
What's the point in bringing Ty Simpson in when you won't even be able to protect him?
B,
Geno's the saviour of the Jets this year.
got Geno Smith.
Got Geno Smith, the redshirt him, and learn from the best.
Oh yeah, get to watch
Jets.
him get bulldozed every single weekend.
Learn behind
okay
Geno for 2 weeks whilst he gets absolutely flattened and then gets thrown in week 3 because Geno's injured.
Ty Simpson's going to play because Geno's getting flawed because they decided to go with Ty Simpson rather than Monroe
Caleb
Freeman.
Lomu, who was sitting right there.
Lads, we all know. Right, we can have these discussions. It's fun. It's cute. It's whatever. You're all being daft though. We all know it's the Cleveland Browns that are going to take him. Right, that's what's going to happen. You say Jets are going to Jet. Actually, Browns are going to Brown.
Browns have been a Brown.
Browns
right?
do look quarterback.
Which, by the way, do you know how I know for a fact that even under Todd Monken, Browns are still going to Brown? Yesterday, Todd Monken missed the, how the head coaches do the whole like school photo.
He wasn't even there, was he?
Did with your class. He wasn't there because he was getting a haircut. The haircut that he was getting for the head coach's photo.
In his defense, they brought the photo forward, so that's not on him because as well, McVay didn't turn up, and he was in the pool.
Hang on. We do not go defending the Jets on this podcast.
Browns are defending him, but nobody does that.
It's the Browns.
But yeah, McVay wasn't there either, was he?
McVay wasn't there because he was told by his PR that it'd been cancelled and he was chilling in the pool. And someone came along and went, they just had the photo, and he's like, I was told it wasn't on.
I like the
NFL and communication, eh?
That's the first one that McVay has missed since 2017 as well. So,
well, there you go. They're going to win Super Bowl this year, then, Sam.
I'll take that.
I don't know how that means they're winning the Super Bowl, but apparently it does.
Randomly, we'll take it. Why not?
If a Niners fan is saying the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl, it's done and dusted.
Got to check the Unsportsmanlike Conduct podcast.
I'm going to say on that note, go and listen to the Unsportsmanlike Conduct podcast on the AEW network. They said more than that. Right, lads, I think that's probably about where we should call it a day. It's been fantastic talking offensive linemen with you. As much as I enjoy talking about 300 to 350 pound Polynesian men, and it is an enjoyable conversation every single time, we're going to flip to roughly similar weight defensive ends next week.
Doing ends or defensive line?
Defensive line. Defensive line next week. So
although it's mostly edges, isn't
it? It's going to be primarily edging next week on the podcast, and then so we will be talking defensive line, which is it's one of my favorite positions to talk about. I absolutely love it, and I've already got a little bit of a head start on it for next week. Very excited, very much looking forward to it. Don't forget, until then, we will have a special episode coming out this weekend with a special guest that we will reveal on social media. Hurdle the Line is currently doing a vote, and you can have your say on the winner of the 10-year tournament. Head to AAW_NFL on Twitter and Instagram. You will see it there and how you can vote and take part in that. I'm going to ask everybody now, while I think I'm going to stack some votes. Just vote Lamar Jackson. Vote Lamar Jackson.
Not. Absolutely not.
Lamar Jackson. Why not?
Because he's a glorified running back.
Exactly, which makes what he did even more impressive.
If you're going to vote for a running back season, you don't vote for Lamar Jackson. You vote for Christian
McCaffrey, which you can do, and separately.
He also won't be getting my vote.
Really? Get out there, shotgun.
So yeah,
you know
whatever.
the terms we were talking about petty earlier. I'm going full petty on this vote.
Full Tom Petty on this vote. Yeah.
Lovely.
Am I able to vote Tom Brady Patriots at any point?
No, because
Well, then I'm
someone
not
didn't
interested.
submit Tom Brady. Right, okay, so I'll give
You
you
can have
the breakdown for
you can have Tom Brady Buccaneers.
Tom Brady's
right,
Buccaneers.
okay, right. So the concept of the episode was it was a 32 player bracket. Every single NFL team, their best individual season from the last 10 years. So, you had Patrick Mahomes 2018, Lamar Jackson's 2024 season was the one that was put forward. The person who was in charge of
3 or 4, whatever it was.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey's 2023, like for the 49ers. The one that was put forward for the Patriots was Drake May's 2025.
Yeah. No.
As he was continuously told on the podcast on Monday, you could have had Tom Brady 17, Tom Brady 18, which are two of his best seasons of all time, but chose
Well, it was someone who'd only started watching properly post that, so
Yeah.
you can see why the
yeah.
pick came back.
Anyway, but yeah, you can go check out the
At least
Hurdle the Line
you know what? It didn't bring as much
controversy.
debate controversy as Deron Bland.
Yeah.
Go
To be
listen
fair, I
go
think it
listen
was
to the pod and
different.
you'll find out why.
Yours got Deron Bland got caught up in the moment. Tom Brady's still catching strays now for not being picked. So to be fair, I think it's starting to balance itself out. Anyway, go check out Hurdle the Line. Go check out the Unsportsmanlike Conduct. We've got the Fantasy Den returning this week with a familiar face. We all know that we listened. AAW Network. More Sam. You're getting more Sam. You are getting more Sam. Less Gary. So still working on that one. But hopefully no, you will be getting more Gary this week. You will be getting more Gary this week. So, all the different stuff going on the AEW network. Hit the links in the description to find out what's going on. Follow AEW_CFB, AEW_network. We will see you next week to talk defensive line. Gents, have a lovely week.
You
Take it
too.
easy.
Bye.